Hey everybody, welcome to In the Node. We're here in the Nagios studios. Our very special guest, Techno Tim. Hey! And we got Chris from our technical marketing team. And of course, I'm Aaron. I've been in a couple of Nagios videos here and there. We're talking about Homelabs today. Tim.
Yeah, I have a small home lab.
A small home lab.
He says small.
How did you start? What did your first home lab look like?
Yeah. So it started a long time ago. So home labs can be a whole bunch of different things. People define them different ways. So I guess my first home server was this old compact desktop that my boss was going to get rid of. And it was destined for the trash. It was this 10-year-old PC. Like even at the time, it was old, and this was a while ago. And so it was destined for the trash. And I asked, "Hey, can I take this home?" And he said, "What do you want to use it for?" I said, "I want to learn." He said, "What do you want to learn about?" I said, "I want to learn about Active Directory. I want to learn about Linux. I want to learn about all these things I can't do at work." And he was like, "Sure, just take the hard drive out." And so that was my first, home lab, home computer, where I had a server at home that I could, build and do whatever I wanted with.
I wonder if people want to comment, however we're going to comment on this video, did you start with cast off materials? Because that's exactly how I started. I was I run a kind of a clean life. I don't hang on to a lot of stuff, but the one thing I hoard is old computer equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, what about you?
Oh yeah, same here, man. I started home labbing pretty much when I got my first computer. My parents had this Gateway PC in the basement, and I took it from the crawl space. And my parents were like, "What the hell are you gonna do with this?" I'm like, "I'm gonna learn computers. I'm gonna take it apart and put it back together." And I would get motherboards, hard drives, servers. I just learned Linux from there and just kept going and going and going. And then next thing you know, now I have 2 big servers in my house, and now my mom's like, "What the hell is that?" And girlfriends or whatever will be like, "Holy shit," at that moment. So yeah.
So you started with an old, dusty, bound for the trash compact. What does it look like now?
Oh, wow. It's really grown. And this is something that I think happens to most people's home labs. It's grown. So, and it's changed. When I first got into serious home labbing, which, I've been seriously home labbing for a long time, but once I got into YouTube, it's kind of evolved a little bit. I think once you start making content, there's bigger expectations. So it's evolved over the last couple of years. It's gone from everything from old enterprise rack mount servers to some current enterprise servers, a couple that I've built myself, and then custom build PCs down to mini PCs. So right now it's a combination of a big NAS with lots of storage. I have 3 mini PCs, all networked and running Kubernetes. I have some other test machines. I have 3 1U servers, all in a rack, and a ton of networking. So it's really evolved a lot.
Yeah.
And I have to make it look nice too, for YouTube. That's another thing, do I really need all that much? Probably not. But it's really fun to have, just this playground to be able to build and test things all the time.
We have an old decommed server rack rolling around in the office here, and everybody's drooling over it. Everybody wants it for their home lab here. Yeah. Everybody's like, when we let go of that, is there a list? Can I be first on that list? Yeah, definitely.
So I actually have a question about this. This is really kind of one of the key questions I want to go through. It's back in 2015, nobody really knew as much about home labbing. Nowadays, you go on Facebook Marketplace, you try to grab yourself a server cabinet or something like that. It used to be $50 or so. Now it's we're charging $200, $300 with the key term of home lab enthusiast, right?
Yeah.
So do you foresee that being an actual trend, an upward trend, and more of I want to say, what are the word that I have in here? It's becoming more mainstream, do you think?
Yeah, great question. And I've noticed this too, right? I think we've all noticed it if you've been in home lab and you have secondhand gear. It used to be, hey, we have a 48U server rack. Come get it. It's yours, free. Just get it out of here. And so I think a lot of people getting rid of this stuff have realized there's a ton of value in this. And so it has happened. I call it the Homelab tax. There's also a server tax. There's a mini tax, like all of these things, just like the Apple tax. Really niche things now are starting to cost a lot more, especially if they're secondhand too. But Homelab, I think, is evolving too. Like it's been getting a lot smaller, and we've been getting mini PCs, and Raspberry Pis have always kind of been around. And so racks are getting smaller too, but then you have the mini rack tax. So
those Geek Pies that came out now, mini PCs that used to be like $20 here and there, like $150 now for a little Dell, like 1080 small, like what do they call it, SSF?
Small form factor. And the 1 liters, I think a lot of people call them, because it's
Minutes
the cubic.
Forum now, it's a big company that came out with their MSO1.
That's right.
Been trying to get my hands on one of those for a hot minute, but man, they don't drop the price under $500, man.
So it's wild. Like there's definitely a market for secondhand gear, and people love it. I mean, I like a server rack in particular because it helps me organize my stuff. I've had wire shelves before. I mean, I've even built a PC out of a laundry basket once because I didn't have a PC case, so I turned a laundry basket upside down, built the PC from there to get it running and testing stuff. So I like a server rack, even if I don't fill it, because it gives me one place to put everything. Plus, it gives me cable management. It gives me just one box to kind of put everything, so it's not everywhere. Because over the years, I've tried everything with my Homelab, and now that I have a 32U rack, I think it's just right, and I can put everything in there. And my wife's not like, "What is going on in there?" She's still kind of like, what is going on in there, but it looks cool.
Right. It's not messy.
That's right. That's right.
To add on to that, when I was younger and I was doing my little hacking stuff in like high school, my parents took away my my desktop tower because they're like, Chris, you got to focus on school. You can't keep focused on the computer. So I had like a little what is it, cabinet or so, like a little plastic one, and I took a motherboard in there and I put the motherboard in there and like a couple hard drives in there, and I had like my little server kind of running there the whole entire time. They never knew about it the whole time.
Awesome.
So when you said the whole thing with the laundry basket, I can relate. Hardcore, I can relate.
Yeah.
I actually have another question on here. If you had an unlimited budget and power, what would your dream home lab look like?
Oh man. If we're pretending, I mean, if I could have a small mini home lab that was powerful enough to do like a lot of my local AI stuff, and have a way to have all of my storage fit in there and not be gigantic, that would be awesome. Because that's a combination of the things I do. It's networking, storage, self-hosting, along with self-hosting AI, home automation, and then just virtualization overall. So I don't know if there's a product out there that would solve that one problem. If there was a all-in-one box that would do that for me, I would totally do it. Because that's kind of what I've been building now. It's just one all-in-one box. I do have multiple servers for clustering and stuff like that. I'm really trying to kind of consolidate, not necessarily consolidate my whole entire home lab, but consolidate the things that are on 24/7. And so the more things I can pile into one box, the better.
That's fair.
It's ebbs and flows though. I'll build the ultimate box, and then 2 months later, I'm like, oh, that'd be nice to cluster that. And then build 3.
That's what
happens. I'm like, why
Yep.
do I have 3 on?
Yep.
Let's go back to 1. So
exactly. I think I had 5 clustered Proxmox units, and then I just moved into a single now 80 core, 512 gigabyte RAM system. Man. And now I'm like, oh man. I'm on Facebook Marketplace looking at 1 rack units all the time. Oh man, what if I just add that to my network?
Yep,
As a home library, you got to come up with stuff.
I know.
You're like, oh man, dude, this AI thing. Oh, but I want to learn TrueNAS. But man, I got to do this. Portainer.
Yeah, a lot of home lab stuff is like, at least for me, when I get into that mode, because that happens to me a lot. It's like solutions looking for problems.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like I look at something on Facebook Marketplace or wherever, eBay, and I'm like, what could I do with that?
Yep.
And then you start to get all these ideas.
Absolutely.
So,
That's how it goes, man.
Do you ever get tempted by the cloud?
Oh, I do. Yeah. It's funny. I was just kind of thinking about that on the way here, about different ways I could, have a hybrid kind of approach. And so, yeah, I do get tempted by the cloud. I mean, a company I work out at now, 100% cloud.
Right.
Past 2 companies, 100% cloud. So I understand the benefits of the cloud, and it's really great to get something up and going, and not have to deal with a lot of the infrastructure piece. But like infrastructure is my hobby, so like for me, this is like my time to kind of geek out on hardware and networking and do the physical things. As a software engineer daily, I do the virtual stuff all day long. Deploy to Kubernetes, builds. It's all it's all intangible stuff that I rarely get to touch. So I do get tempted by it, specifically when it comes to energy and heat. Those are the two where I'm like, could I run part of my Kubernetes cluster here? But then run all the worker nodes in the cloud, choose like 10 different, cloud vendors, pick their free tier and just spread my workloads over there. And then it's like, okay, well, less heat, less noise, less energy, and better security too, right? So, because I do self-host things out of my home. I've since moved some of my stuff into a co-location, actually in downtown Minneapolis. So that's cool. Yeah. So I have yet another Homelab that's in a co-location that a guy I met is running, and so a lot of people are throwing their servers in there. So
he's infecting the world, man.
so even I have my own cloud, kind of, but it's co-located. Basically, it's my Homelab that's not in my basement. It's my other Homelab.
All right.
So I do get tempted by a lot, especially the tooling around cloud. The tooling and stuff. It's just like, how easy is it to provision a VM, or how easy is it to take a snapshot and back up? It's pretty easy at home with Proxmox too. But getting a load balancer and a public IP is click a button.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, usually.
But I do get tempted by it for small workloads, because like once you start getting into bigger things, like if I'm going to run a whole Kubernetes cluster there, it's getting expensive, or if I do anything that's compute heavy, with either GPU or CPU, you start paying for it. So
those Amazon tier lists, man, they be hurting. The node be hurting sometimes too. Like just hosting something small in the node, like Uptime Kuma, for example, on my Homelab, I just have a small little compute thing. I pay $5 a month for it. And if anything on my server goes down, I'll know about it. So pretty cool.
It's a great use case for cloud, is to monitor your Homelab, right? So to monitor something outside, to monitor, you guys monitoring Nagios, right?
Like you got to get out of band.
That's
to a certain
right.
extent, right?
Yeah. Like a lot of people like yourself will put Uptime Kuma or some, monitoring system in the cloud to then monitor their self-hosted services so they can know when it goes down. So it's a perfect use case for that. At some point, I'd love to just spin up, free tier everything everywhere in the cloud, and just to play around with it and shift my workloads around, And
that question then, do you think it's more difficult to work with cloud stuff than Homelabbing itself, since you have more of a grasp on the actual infrastructure? Because I've noticed every time when I spool up like a Google Cloud console and stuff, I get so confused. I mean, Jesus, there's too many buttons to push.
It does. And like every cloud vendor has their own dashboard and their own way of doing stuff. I'll make fun of Amazon, AWS and how confusing it is, or Azure and how confusing it is. I use GCP a lot, which is super confusing too. You just kind of got to get used to it. And so, that's one thing I don't like so much, is like learning a vendor's UI, because that's really locking you in, not just locking you into their products, but it's also locking you into some kind of training that you need to have for the next job. And so, that's where I think, like, if you start getting more into GitOps or more, DevOps type roles where you kind of don't need the UI anymore, and you're using CLI and automation to do all that. Well, all of those, APIs that are maybe Kubernetes or whatever are kind of similar. When you start doing infrastructure stuff, it's a little bit different because you're going to use the AWS CLI or the G Cloud CLI, But if you use something like Terraform, then again, you kind of abstract that away.
Terraform is tremendously vendor specific.
It is totally. Yeah. I agree. It's painted as this kind of agnostic thing where you can. I'm going to request virtual machines.
I would market it too. If I would too. My product,
totally. But once you get into it, there's so many nuances. Like, it could only do this with this cloud, and it could only do this with this cloud. So
yeah. One of the somehow we ended up on cloud, but one of my favorite stories about cloud development was how in the initial start to AWS, the commandment was there must be an API. But there was no standard for the API. And so every individual team developed its own API. And so there's absolutely no consistency in API for format and styling. And it's just like the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
And one of the really interesting things to me, as someone who I just ended up because of where I was and decisions other people had made, I ended up in GCP. And sort of the benefit that I think Google had in being second was to take a look at that sort of mess. I mean, it works. I'm not saying it doesn't, but there's no consistency and it's kind of all over the board. And they got a chance to deliver a more, shall we say, considered API and more consistent across all of their offerings. I just thought that's a fascinating story to me about being second.
Yeah, they were third because Azure. But yeah.
So,
they were really late to the enterprise game. I think for a while they were like, we're not going to do enterprise, and they're like, oh wait, we should probably do enterprise, and do cloud. It was very interesting their late approach to it. But I use GCP all day long, like I have for years, and I enjoy it. I know where things are. It's pretty, their design is, they use material design, which I'm comfortable with. I kind of know where things are laid out. They got great search. But that's because I'm familiar with it. I always feel a little bit lost when I go to Azure,
You're telling me. When I worked at Microsoft and I still couldn't figure it out.
AWS, same. They're all getting better.
Don't even talk about AWS, man. You're going to give me PTSD. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I like self-hosting my own Kubernetes, so I do that with K3S, and so then I can run the kubectl, kubectl. I run the CLI all the time, and so I don't need to worry about which cloud I'm in, or if it's self-hosted, if it's in someone else's cloud, because all the Kubernetes distributions should be using the same Kubernetes API, which is pretty cool. So, one day I could be doing stuff in Azure. As long as I use the kubectl API or CLI, I'm good to go. Even, I do a lot of Rancher stuff too, and same thing. Like I just try to depend on the CLI more than the UI. And even go a step further, I do a whole bunch of GitOps 2 stuff where that's really like, committing, the definition of your code, of your infrastructure as code, right? Very similar to Terraform, but you're actually committing it, to a repo, pushing that up or creating pull request, and then some automation will then apply all of that. So it's really cool. Cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think in the context of Homelabs, I'll use cloud for things that I just need to have run.
Yeah.
And so if it's okay that it's down for a bit, I'll host that inside. But if I'm gonna run a website or a web service or something that I want to absolutely rely on, I will tend to put that in the cloud.
Yeah, way better uptime than your home.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Do you use cellular routing at all? Do you have backup network connections?
I just did. Yeah. So 5G. Yeah. So I just did. That's funny. I came last week. So at home, I fiber internet, and then there was this deal to get 5G, home internet for super cheap. And I was like, oh, that could be my backup internet. And so I do have backup internet now. And so, I guess if something goes down, I can still get to it through the backup internet. It's terribly slow and latency is super high, but it works.
Right.
And so that's how I'm doing it now. For some of my Techno Tim hosted stuff, that's in my co-location in Minneapolis, which is still a group of people, and they're people who are running it, but very reliable internet and service there. So I do self-host all of my public-facing Techno Tim stuff, like bots and documentation, in my co-location. But still, I manage all of that hardware and network and everything like that. So There we have pretty good internet, so I don't have to worry about it going down. But home, I do have backup internet, and that was only this past week because I got a deal like I couldn't refuse. It was like super cheap, and on top of that, we're going to give you, I don't know, $250 gift card. And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I?
Take the gift card. Yeah, take the gift card.
But I didn't up until now. I considered it for a while. I actually have 2 fiber ISPs that go to my house now. So that's pretty awesome. And I thought about like, hey, why not just subscribe to both? But I think it's kind of expensive. So
it does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So in that question then, what is your most over-engineered thing that you have in your
Oh my gosh.
Over-engineered.
It's so funny you say that. Oh, so funny you say that because I was just thinking about that list not too long ago because I'm probably going to do a video on like my super over-engineered Home Assistant. So I use Home Assistant for home automation.
Yeah, I've seen those, yeah.
And you know, Home Assistant is this open source project. It's really great. Open source, it's one of the biggest like projects on GitHub according to commits and community involvement. But the promise is that you can have local control of all of your smart devices. And so you can depend less on the cloud. That's not necessarily true for some devices because some devices are cloud only. But they've done a lot of reverse engineering to sniff packets and do all this stuff so you can still kind of control it locally. So I have this instance that's been running and, you know, I keep adding devices and adding devices and adding devices. And then, you know, I'm adding like Zigbee to MQTT. I have to learn all about Zigbee protocol and this MQTT. And now I have a message broker that brokers all of this Zigbee communication.
That's exactly why I didn't start doing this. That's exactly why, because I started looking at Home Assistant and I was like, nah, man, this is too much. Like, at some point, then you start making AI scripts for your unified cameras to pick up license plates. And then you have to come up with stuff.
I already pipe all of my cameras. So then I pipe all of my cameras into this thing called Scripted, which will then process all of the video. So then I can get it inside a HomeKit.
Dude, why?
I don't know. And then on top of that, like, then I decided, well, you know, Home Assistant's great for me, but my wife's never going to use it, you know, and so then I pipe everything from Home Assistant into HomeKit. So she can use all of our devices that are not HomeKit certified in Apple Home and HomeKit.
At this point, you're just going to be the next Iron Man, man. You're going to come home and then you're like, Jarvis, make me lunch. And next thing you know, your Home Assistant is doing all that stuff for you.
It is wild. And I did hook up AI to it and it actually worked pretty good. I did hook up AI. So I hooked up Ollama to it with Ollama model with Whisper. And Whisper is a voice model.
I've heard about that, yeah.
So I could talk to it and talk to the model. The model would, you know, obviously then give Home Assistant commands to run. So like a great example is, you know, Home Assistant without, you know, LLMs, I should say, or AI is kind of dumb. You say, hey, you know, turn on the lights in the bedroom and it will say like, I don't know what the bedroom is. It's like, okay, whatever. And then I hooked up my LLM to it, my local one running in the home, and I said, hey, you know, turn on all the lights in the bedroom, you know, and 2 seconds later, all the lights in the bedroom turn on, you know, and that's the nice thing about having LLMs is because, you know, they can understand. I could have said, you know, turn on, you know, it's not looking for keywords. It's more, you know, trying to understand what they are and then converting that.
I got an interesting one for you. And this is interesting because when I'm doing home labbing stuff, I think about this in the future. I'm running Open Web UI with Ollama, got a couple of AIs hosted on my network. And I'm thinking, what if there's a way to automate creating virtual machines, destroying virtual machines, monitoring networks, all by just simply talking to my home lab?
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So like with Proxmox, I know they have something going on with Ollama and some kind of API thing that you could be like, hey, I want to spool up a VM, has this. I want this amount of like, I want this IP address. I want this amount of RAM. I want all that sort of thing. Do you foresee that being the future of home labbing and the future of kind of like going into networking and infrastructure moving forward?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because that's another thing I've been looking at lately. And so what you're describing is this thing called MCPs. And so MCP is this model context protocol. But really what it is, it's kind of a interface into a different model or a model more focused on doing some tasks. At least that's how I understand it. So big picture, what does that do? Well, if you had an MCP for Proxmox, the MCP would turn natural language commands into API requests and possibly do those for you. So the benefit there is then you hook that up to, an LLM, a basic chat one that understands humans, and you could say, hey, Proxmox, create 2 VMs, Linux, 40 gig hard drives, 2 cores, 10 gigs of RAM, and oh, by the way, spin up an LXC container too. It would take that, give that instruction to the MCP, and then the MCP would convert that into API commands, and it would do it for you. Mm-hmm. So those things exist right now. I was using one this week, and it was pretty awesome.
I think N8N.
N8N, and so N8N's more like orchestration and automation,
right,
but they can connect to MCPs. And so, I was using an MCP this week while I was coding because I needed to understand this, personal work stuff, I guess, kind of boring, but I need to understand Shopify stuff. I'm not a Shopify developer, but I had to write some Shopify code. And so, a generic LLM like ChatGPT is going to get it kind of right. But the MCP that connects to all Shopify data, all Shopify API data is going to get really right, and probably some best practices too. So I can, write my question, ask for an example, connect to this MCP, it will connect to Shopify.
It's crazy,
it will get
man.
The example back out of the documentation and help me form my code according to their best practices. So MCPs exist. They're super new right now. And I think all these companies are starting to build up their MCP because now they're sweet, this is how we can get data out, not only for our customers, but for ourselves too.
Right.
And so it might be the future. It might be. I don't know. We're in this really weird time right now where LLMs or AI is really awesome and really powerful, and everybody's trying to really figure out how to use it. Some people are using it really good. If you think about any of the, GitHub Copilot or any of the coding tools, really good right now. I have no idea. The airlines, I think, was it United, just said they're going to start using it to do prices based on whatever.
You almost had
I think it was Delta.
Was it Delta?
It was Delta.
As long as you say airlines are going to start orchestrating the
There's some
planes.
public anxiety over that decision.
Yeah.
And so rather than a human, do it, they're just going to say, hey, we're going to turn it on for some and let, AI kind of do this. And that's probably a good job
as
for
if they weren't running predictive analytics before.
Exactly.
Right?
So AI is a lot of marketing. Yeah. There's a lot of marketing. Really, that they should distinguish between, using an LLM to solve something, and whatever else it was. And the whatever else is what we've been doing for 20 years, writing code to figure stuff out with algorithms.
Wouldn't it be amazing if they thought that would be good marketing, except there was a huge backlash to it. They totally misread.
It's I've been doing AI. I have a couple if statements and a while loop. Is that AI? I don't know. It's interesting to talk about this stuff. I like that idea for some stuff, but I don't like that idea for other things. I'm starting to use it enough to where I'm it'd be great to offload this thing I need to do and tell this agent really quick, go do this thing, But there are other times when I want to do it myself, write code. I want to do that myself. If I need help looking stuff up, sure, I want to look stuff up and I want to get the right answer. There are other things where I do it because I want to, sharpen my skills. And so I want to have hands-on keyboard. And then there are other things that I think are kind of mundane where it's it'd be nice to have this thing taken care of for me. And Proxmox stuff and all that, I enjoy doing that. So while it'd be cool to tell, an agent to go do that for me, I like that, and I want to keep that skill sharp.
I agree with you, man, completely.
What is your Homelab AI setup look like these days?
Oh, so right now it's kind of shifted a little bit. It used to be I'll tell you what it is right now instead of what it used to be. So right now, all it is, it's nothing super fancy. So I use Ollama, and so Ollama, is kind of, it's an API over models that you can use.
It's like an engine.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good analogy. So it pretty much is an engine for models, large language models, and then on top of that, I pull in all kinds of models. I just use Llama and Cogen sometimes.
Cogen is pretty good along with Lava 3.
Yep, and then Open Web UI, you were talking about that a little bit later. So that's the interface, it's a user interface to chat with, to create projects and do stuff with. That's all running in Docker containers. I'm a huge fan of containerization in general, but that's running in Docker containers. I have an A200 RTX, and so that's awesome because it only the most power draw is 75 watts. So it draws all of its power from the board, from the PCI Express slots, and that maxes out at 75. Meanwhile, I have a 3090 in another machine, and it can get up to 350 watts just by doing a couple of things. So I kind of like the physical constraint on that GPU. You know, if I have to wait an extra second or two, totally fine with me, versus, you know, let's shave that 2 seconds off, but, you know, let's also spike the power to 350, watts. And it's funny because I just set up a whole bunch of monitoring to see this stuff. So, but that's kind of it. It's pretty simple. I used to have Home Assistant wired up to it. I kind of dialed that back because it was more just kind of a party trick to say, hey, you know, go do all of these things. And it did work. But also Home Assistant, Home Assistant's in a weird spot right now because they're trying to figure out local LLM stuff and self-hosted and let you control it. So I don't know.
I think that comment is the state of the world, the state of the tech world right now, right? I mean, I know places like even for Nagios, right? One of the things that is true is that a lot of our customers value the fact that you can run it in your own network. And it's not cloud hosted. You can run it in the cloud. You can put it on a VM in the cloud, but it's within your own network. Sure. And so a lot of people are running it in completely offline environments. And we were taking a look at, what do you do with an LLM? I mean, how do you, if you can't connect to the cloud, well, then you have to run it locally.
That's right.
But then, now I'm telling you that you got to buy even more hardware to run our solution because we've got this thing on there. And so IBM's got some really interesting smaller models that they have going. And so I'm really interested in where that's going to go. Because I think a lot of that question is like, how much power can I get close to me? And how much reason and how much flexibility can I get, and how few resources can I actually run this on? And kind of what's staggering is how amazing a little bit of hardware with this technology can be.
It is. It is incredible. Like a little bit of GPU goes a long way with this stuff. And so I think that is the future too, combining, local with some kind of basically a hybrid approach. Have a local one to do the easy stuff or the low-hanging fruit type of stuff. And then if you need to do some more heavier lifting, send it off somewhere else. I think that's the route Apple's going to, although they're having some issues with that. But I think that's going to be the route for maybe a lot of people where they're going to start doing, LLM stuff, AI stuff on the edge, closer to where the workload is, so that they can, take advantage of some of this stuff. But a little bit of GPU goes a long way with this stuff. It's incredible how very little hardware you need now to figure a lot of stuff out.
I'm surprised because Stable Diffusion used to require so much higher stuff. Now I'm idling about 7 gigs for Stable Diffusion on VRAM. I mean, I just want it to be smaller at the end of the day. I don't want a huge electric bill to do AI content. And I want to see the technology get better to the point where it's almost integrated with a lot of the systems that we have going forward. So hopefully we'll get there.
I don't think we're too far away from what you described. Like the power, maybe, the efficiency is a ways out if it can ever be solved. But the being able to talk to an LLM and have it do things for you, we're kind of there with a lot of things. I think this whole agent approach now with MCPs is we're on the cusp of a lot of things now having that.
Have you seen ChatGPT's agent function?
I saw it was available. I haven't tried it.
I bought a go-kart recently because I like to drive go-karts, small engines and stuff. And my go-kart engine died. So I got in a video call with ChatGPT. Didn't know I could do that, right? So I was like, okay, fuck it. We'll try it. And I was like, hey, ChatGPT, where's the carburetor on this go-kart? And it was like, oh, it's right there. It's underneath the thing. And I'm like, the thing I'm pointing at, that's the carburetor. So I first see people wearing smart glasses down the line and be like, hey, let me see this. Let me find out how to do it. Let me talk to this thing. I just want to be able to talk to something, go on the phone and be like, hey, go home, set up these LXC containers with these IP addresses, and then I can just like fuck with it. Fuck with it when I get home. That's
I hear. Yeah,
right?
no.
All the redundant tasks that I always end up doing could be simplified by me just talking into it, and it just exists.
So those are kind of like the mundane things I was talking about. Like if you could offload your mundane things that just take time that you can do. To then focus on the things that you actually want to do, right?
Exactly
like you're spinning up your LXC containers, maybe to learn LXC, but most likely to run a service on top of that.
And that's kind of like the whole point of home labbing, at least to some point. First is to learn, to build, develop, grow, and then you're like, oh man, I want to come up with problems and then solve. But then it comes to a point where you're like, okay, well, now I have this equipment running. It's costing me so much money. Why don't I put it to work that'll make it, either automate something or make my life easier. Like when I'm recording something that somebody's saying, I want it to automatically be scripted, transcribed onto a note platform, which then I can automate and that sort of thing. And I'm hoping that it grows and grows over time and develops into that.
I feel like we're on the edge of we're already doing a lot of LLM stuff and AI stuff everywhere, but I think now it's like kind of generally accepted. For a while, a lot of people were pushing back, but you see companies have it spread throughout everything they do. Even if they're not involved with AI at all, they're doing it.
Let's hope Unify doesn't go too far in that. Unify Networks threat detection, we AI automated your whole entire network and we found all your security flaws. You know what I mean?
You definitely need some guardrails in place, and it'd be one thing to detect and it'd be another thing to take action. I would be fine with detect, and I think this goes along with a lot of the agents or AI stuff in general. I would love for things to detect and ask me for approval. Where I'm the human in the loop. That's what it's called. It'd have a human in the loop. I want to be the human in the loop. And if it means approving things, fine. Rubber stamping things, fine. But there are very few times where I want it to do things for me automatically, unless I know exactly what it's going to do, right?
Gotcha.
And so when I write code, I know exactly what it's going to do. I wrote the code. There could be bugs, obviously, but for the most part, I know what it's going to do. AI, LLMs, not so much. And it might not do the same thing twice. And so that's where I think,
that's the thing.
QAing those models and stuff comes in like that. But
consistency and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I want to be the human in the loop. So.
Hey, I want to switch gears just a little bit.
Yeah.
So much of home labbing is about the physical equipment and the hardware itself. Yeah. Do you own a soldering iron?
Funny, I do. I actually am not great at it. I'm not great. And I bought one from Micro Center shortly after I moved here to Minnesota I don't know, it's just dumb Homelab stuff.
Right.
It's so dumb. I bought this router. I wanted to flash it with DDWRT.
Oh,
you
nice.
couldn't flash it with DDWRT unless you did this hack with soldering stuff.
Oh, no.
I'm like, now's the time to learn because I don't want to pay for this DDWRT license.
Did you brick it?
No, it actually
nice.
works. It actually works. I couldn't believe it. It's funny too, the lengths people will go to not to pay for something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's so silly. I should have at the time just paid the 10 or 20, 30 bucks, to get this DDWRT license on this thing and, supported the project. Right. I'm just young and dumb and I'm just I'm going to go buy a soldering iron. I'm going to figure this out, not paying for any license, And so it did work. Little jank. Right. Didn't really fit back together the way it should have, but it worked. Right. And I might have just donated it just recently. It was this eGenius weird access point, outdoor access point, and I used it inside. Of course.
I think I did something similar to that. There was a T-Mobile Arcadia routers, those little 5G routers or whatever. Yeah. I tried to hack it in order to see if I could just use it as a SIM, WAN failover device, and just plug a SIM card into it and then make it a WAN over. And it was so locked down. You couldn't do nothing with it. It spent so much time. I bought it at a thrift store. I said, you know what, whatever, I'll try this.
Yeah.
A lot of people end up doing stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's I do. Do you have a soldering iron? Do you solder?
I do solder.
Yeah.
I'm my home lab looks more like I think a mad science lab than anything because I really like gadgets and making gadgets and pulling things around. I made a mouse jiggler. And ESP32. And then
what'd you use that for? Was that to stay online on a game or just for fun?
So I was I was working, I was consulting, and I was in. It was the pandemic, and everybody's at home, right? And I would be on the corporate network, and I'm doing infrastructure, I'm doing automation, and I'm working away. Well, the answers I need are on Stack Overflow, and they're on Reddit, and they're on all of these sites that are locked down because corporate doesn't want you to post company secrets to Reddit while you're asking somebody to help you figure this thing out, right? So I could have gone to security and gotten an exception to every single website I wanted to go, but I quickly tired of that, and I would just use my personal laptop to get the information that I needed. But then, I lost my session on the corporate network. And so it looks like I'm not working. Yeah. Well, I'm killing it over here, right? I'm like, oh, all right, and I'm going back and forth. Yeah. So I just needed a little presence. All right, I like it. So I'm forever cutting cables apart and seeing what's in there and taking them apart. And so I solder and have chips, and I like the ESP32 a ton, and so I have dev boards and I have loose chips and I have prototypes that I've had made and shipped over. And
do you miss Radio Shack?
Not only do I miss Radio Shack, I kind of miss what Micro Center used to have.
Oh, don't look at me for that.
Right? I mean, because it used to be you could go in there and you could get anything Arduino, anything ESP32. They had everything. I was like, why would I even bother to order this? Yeah. Right. I can just drive to St. Louis Park. Yeah. I'm good to go. Yeah. And so when they shrank that department down, I mean, they got all the 3D spools you could ever, or 3D printing spools you could ever want, right? I mean, it's kind of like
that invaded that maker space.
It did that whole space. It's just
that's true.
Yeah. So, but what can you do? I mean, they're probably making valid business decisions.
And that filament is the in-house filament, so it's probably printing money, but literally printing money.
Yeah, I was making a killing off the commission, man. It's kind of funny because I was working there and I sold him a 3D printer.
Yeah, that's where I met Chris. My first 3D printer. I was like, I'm going to buy a 3D printer. I didn't have one. I shied away from a 3D printer for a long time, forever. And I'd see all these cool things people are printing, and I really didn't understand it at all, and so I was like, the longer I wait, the better they get. I don't need one yet. And so I had this list of things that I wanted to print, although I didn't know how to print. And I thought, well, when this list gets long enough, then I can justify buying one. But I'd always hear people say, I just bought this 3D printer and I upgraded everything on it. And I would think you just bought a 3D printer and you upgraded everything? What? Yep. What? I didn't understand the whole, just the whole world of 3D printing. After getting one, I understand now.
Oh, yeah.
But so I went in and I was like, I know what I want. I know what printer I want. And that's where I met Chris. Yeah.
And I was like,
he's like, oh, he's a freshman.
Today's the day. Today's the day. You're going to get a 3D printer.
So what did you start with?
I have the same one. So,
what do you got?
I have Bamboo Labs P1S.
Okay.
And, all the things I was worried about printing, or all the horror stories I heard about printing, I missed that whole generation of printers by jumping to here. I just made this huge jump, and people are like, oh man, you don't have to deal with spaghetti or tuning your printer and all this stuff. They're naming off all these problems they've had that I've never had, because I just missed that whole class of problems by going to it. It literally is almost as easy as printing a piece of paper.
I will say it's way more reliable than a regular printer, or even cheaper to get the spools for some reason than the ink.
Yeah, but it is almost as easy as printing it. There's a lot of dragons and landmines in here. Hey, wash your plate and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's awesome. And then the first 4 months of 3D printing, it's solutions looking for problems. You're going through and you're like, yeah, I need this dust cover for this hole that I'll never get dust in. And you're just printing off all of this stuff for your printer.
That's where it comes into home labbing too, because it's just instrumental. Oh yeah. You end up those GeekPi, those little GeekPi servers. Yep. You start printing panels for them. Yeah. There's a little USG gateways. They have a 10-inch rack thing.
Yeah,
you can't buy
I did a video on them. Yeah.
You 3D print that sort of stuff. Noctua fans, the little Noctua, the 140 millimeter, the tiny ones. And you're like, like, oh man, well the switch doesn't have a Noctua fans and it's enterprise, but I need an adapter. So you just engineer an adapter to make it fit. So then you have a quieter switch for your home lab because you can't use the enterprise fans because you know your wife or your kids would get really pissed because you have this loud server. So you like have the 3D printed component aspect into there and you kind of put it together. So it goes really hand in hand. Like
it pairs so well. They pair it together so well. And there've been so many times where I think, man, I gotta buy this part. You know, I'm still in that mode of where, oh man, I need this, whatever, this serial ATA adapter, SATA adapter. Dang it, I can't do this till tomorrow. I'm like, wait, I got a printer. And I look and there's like 15 variations of this adapter that I need. I'm like, oh yeah, this is so great. It's such a good feeling to be able to like produce something inside of your home that you can use. Yeah. Like, you know, I totally random. I was holding on to this hose that had a nozzle that broke. I don't know why I was holding on to it because it still worked, you know, and I could still like a garden hose and it had a, you know, had a little valve on it. Yep. And it broke and I thought, well, you know, I could still turn it with my hands. It kind of hurts, whatever. And then I pulled it out this season and I was like, oh yeah, like I can probably print that thing. Sure enough, it was like a standard valve, like, you know, for nozzle valve for, I don't know, plumbing. Yeah. And I printed it and put it right on and it works like new. So it's just like incredible how many things you can fix or create with 3D printing. It's incredible.
What is like one thing that you 3D printed that's the dumbest thing?
Again, like solutions looking for problems, I printed this spool transfer mechanism. And I printed this contraption. It looks so awesome. I mean, it's like this big and the whole thing is 3D printed, not one piece of anything but plastic. And you line it up and you put your two spools on. It even has the little like, I don't know, thing that like spins back and forth to line up your spool perfectly. And so now I can transfer, you know, filament from one spool to another with this spool with this huge handle. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's awesome. It does serve a purpose. That's probably the most ridiculous thing, but it actually turned out really cool. It's one thing when I show people, they're like, "Whoa, that whole thing is printed." You know,
I'll tell you mine.
What's that?
Banana holder.
Yeah, I've seen them.
My bananas.
I've seen them.
Anything for the bathroom.
I did a toothpaste saver where you can take the tube of toothpaste and you put it inside of this thing and you crank it. It's so hard to get in there.
It's so dumb, but it's like so useful, right?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Anytime I go to any of the printing sites, I'm like, yeah, I totally need that, you know, and I don't need any of this stuff.
So I'm going to switch gears back on the home labbing. To kind of wrap things up, my final question is, what advice would you give someone wanting to turn home labbing into a career like you've kind of done with YouTube and that sort of thing? What is your advice?
So first of all, I would say, like, you know, there's a couple of pieces like, hey, how do I get into home labbing? I think that for a long time, people have thought, I need to go and buy all of this hardware and, you know, create this monstrous home lab and do all of this stuff before I can start home labbing. It's called yak shaving, like this whole, like, you got to do these 50 things before you can, you know, do the thing you want to do. And it's not like that with home labbing. You could get started super easy. I mean, you could get started on a Raspberry Pi, an old PC, an old laptop. And if you don't have any additional hardware, you could do virtualization on your own machine to, you know, spin up lab machines. So it doesn't take a lot to get started with home labbing. You do need at least one machine, I would say. So there's that, right? You got to have some kind of system to run, but you also have to kind of have a desire to learn and tinker. A lot of the times, at least in my home lab, I'm either fixing something I broke or breaking things that are already working for whatever reason. You know, I feel like a lot of it, you know, some people would say it's like another job at home, you know, but for me, it's a hobby, you know, and so my wife kind of looks at it like, man, why do you want to work? Like, to her, in her mind, that's working, you know.
My mom says the same thing.
Yeah, and to me, in my mind, it's easy for me to separate, here are the things I do for work, and then here's, you know, the home lab stuff that I want to do and I think about all day that I want to figure out. So there's, you got to have that desire to want to do it. There's that. And then, you know, I wouldn't go into it with an expectation of like, hey, I'm going to do all of this home labbing so then I can turn it into content or to profit off of it. I would just look at it like a hobby that you might learn some valuable skills. Go into it, wanting to learn about stuff. If it's just a hobby, that's totally fine. I think there's a lot of valuable skills you can get out of it. And I found a lot of skills that I've learned at home, I get to bring to work. And they appreciate it because when things come up, sometimes that's not anyone's, specialty, but you might have done it. And so you automatically become the guy or the person who knows or did that before. And then vice versa, like a lot of stuff I learned at work, I get to take home too. Mm-hmm. And so I learn all of this cool stuff. And at work, I'm doing work things, still cool and interesting, but that's their environment. I don't want to break their environment. So, I get to learn these cool things and kind of take them home and play with those too. So I think it goes both ways. So I think you just have to want to learn the stuff, have, modest hardware. You could get by, even if you don't have anything, you could definitely get by with an old laptop that's probably $10-15 at a refurb store. And it's going to give you Linux or whatever you want to do.
I learned Kubernetes on 3 Pis.
Yeah, yep, yeah. And so even here in Minneapolis, there's this place called Free Geek. It's a nonprofit, and they sell old machines. And so that's where I donate a lot of my old gear because one, they'll repurpose it if needed, and two, if not, they'll recycle it and tear it down in a responsible way. So like Free Geek here in the Twin Cities, if you're there, has a lot of like cheap machines. They have servers there and stuff too. But yeah, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to get started. I think it's just a will.
All right. Well, hey, we would sit here and talk all day. I don't know how much of this is actually going to hit the internet, but we've been sitting here talking for well over an hour. So, Tim, thanks so much for joining us. I've never met you before, and so this was really a big honor for me. And Chris, always good to hang out with you. And with that, that's in the note. Thanks for being here. Tell us about your home lab.